Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third and last September talk, dedicated this month to a fascinating topic, the boom of the neo OEMs. 2 weeks ago, we exchanged with Arnaud Aimé from Share Partners, with whom we learned more about the neo OEM overall landscape and identified together the key reasons behind their expansion in numbers. Last week, we exchanged with the GM France of Airways and learned more about the European ambitions of this Chinese neo OEM. Both of those videos and discussions can be found on our YouTube channel. Today, I am really pleased to welcome Mary J. East, Head of Public Policy and Government Affairs, Europe at Arrival, a British electric lightweight commercial vehicle manufacturer with an original development strategy 100% focused on commercial customers. Mary J., hello and welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Clement.
Thank you for being here, Mary J. As you know, these talks are organized by the Mobility Club of VID, the acceleration platform of VID, sorry for that, dedicated to supporting mobility players in their innovation strategy and their understanding of the key latest trends of the mobility world. As you are now used to, we'll be with Mary J for the next 15 minutes. This morning. So don't hesitate to say hi and introduce yourself in the chat section on the right side of your screen. And of course, ask questions that will be shared with Mary J at the end of our discussion. So Mary J, I propose that we jump right in, and I'm going to ask you my first question. What is Arrival? Could you tell us the story of your company from its creation until now?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me this morning. So Arrival is a technology company. It started 7 years ago fundamentally with a mission to replace all vehicles with an electric solution that are produced locally. Arrival's, it's really pioneering a radical new approach to the way that we design and the way that we produce vehicles without the legacy of the internal combustion engine, which is kind of holding us back. So designed from a very blank sheet of paper, a whole new approach to the auto industry with the technologies of today. How we're doing this is we're doing this in what we call microfactories. And I'm very happy to explain a little bit about what a microfactory is. The clue is in the name, definitely. It's a smaller factory than the traditional OEMs. And these are lower capex, smaller footprint facilities that can produce vehicles locally for the cities or the operators that are going to use the vehicles there. So we were founded in the UK, we were founded in London. We have our first microfactory in the UK, and we also have a microfactory in the US, in Charlotte, in North Carolina. It's been a very exciting year. The past year's been a very exciting one for Arrival as we've hit some key milestones. Our all-electric van has achieved certification, EU certification, whole vehicle type approval. So that was a fantastic milestone. And we'll be delivering the first vans to our customers in Q4. And these will be the first vehicles produced with our microfactory in the UK.
Okay, great. Thanks for this. I think we have a better understanding now what is Arrival. Could you tell us more about what you've already mentioned, your original distribution strategy, which is very original, and if I understand, we're only focused on commercial, if not 100% focused on commercial customers.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are just focused on the commercial vehicle segment. And that was really from asking ourselves the question of where can we have the biggest impact in terms of reducing emissions? What is going to have the most impact there? And it's definitely the commercial vehicle sector if we think about all the vans running around the cities, all the buses as well. So it was a deliberate strategy, in fact, to focus on the electric commercial vehicle sector. We're very focused on the van. That's going to be our first product, but we also do have a bus program and a car program. But at the moment, we're fully focused on the van, and that's really because that's where we see the demand in the market. I'm sure over the last few years we've all, seen the rise in e-commerce, and we've all been having more e-commerce deliveries than usual, particularly during the pandemic. But that's really where the demand is in the market. And that's from what we see as push and pull factors. So There's definitely, cities making legislation or banning anything that is not a zero emission vehicle. So the demand in cities for these vehicles is very large. So you have that kind of the policy or the legislation which is creating the demand, but also from the operator point of view, when you talk about commercial vehicles, the decision about which vehicle to buy is a much less emotional one compared to individual passenger cars. It's really driven by what's the best total cost of ownership, what's going to be the best long-term investment, and we really see there that fleet operators, they're going for electric because it's a better total cost of ownership. So that's why we're focused on the commercial vehicle sector. And we have some really interesting customers. So UPS is a key anchor customer of ours, and they'll be our first customer taking deliveries this year. But also, and interesting, I think, for France and the audience today, potentially being more European, is we have an agreement with LeasePlan, so for 3,000 vans across Europe. So a lot of opportunities in the commercial vehicle sector, particularly in Europe. So really looking forward to seeing our arrival vans in our cities soon.
Yes, I'm sure that you really are anxious and excited to see the first vans on the roads. So you said they will arrive in Q4, right? The first ones?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks very much for answering this question. You mentioned also earlier that you have something that makes you kind of different from the other manufacturers, that makes you closer to your customers. You tell us if that's right. This concept of microfactories, which is kind of unique among the different OEMs. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's really, I think it's one of the things that really sets Arrival apart from different players in this space. Not only are we only focused on completely electric vehicles, but we have this microfactory approach, which is fundamentally different. And I think to explain it's important to sort of take a step back and look at how the auto industry got us to where we are today. We've basically been, using a production system that started 100 years ago. And in that time, we look at all the technology advances that we've seen. So whilst we've gotten very good at that production system, it's still the original production system that, when you have assembly lines, you essentially have one massive factory. It's very far away and it ships vehicles globally. It costs billions of euros, has to produce hundreds of thousands of vehicles with very low margins. So we really asked ourselves a very different question of just how can we create vehicles with the technology of today from a blank sheet of paper approach that are more affordable, that have a better user experience, and that are produced closer to where they're going to be used. Mm-hmm. So the concept of the microfactory, if we think visually about what it looks like, it can be about 20,000 to 30,000 square foot. It's a configuration of what we call technology cells. So it's a robotic manufacturing process, where we have a collection of technology cells that all perform operations in order to produce the vehicle. Also running around the microfactory are automated mobile robots, which are Arrival's in-house technology. So fundamentally, you have a lower capex production facility. It has a smaller footprint, and that's really significant because we don't have a paint shop. We don't need to have large presses, and these are really responsible for a lot of the CO2 emissions of the traditional production process. So we don't have them because we've had key technology enablers that mean that we can basically get rid of them. We have a Lego type architecture. We're very vertically integrated, so we create a lot of the components ourselves in-house. And I'll give you one example. So the body panels of our vehicles are not made from steel. They're made from our own composite material, which is a polypropylene carbon fiber material that comes in as like rolls of fabric. We put it through certain processes, through certain molds, and that is actually then the body panels of our vehicles. And you have the benefit of you haven't used lots of steel. The material is actually lighter and more durable than steel. it's nicer to work with. So for our employees, it's a much nicer material to work with. But if you're then buying the van as the operator, it's because it's much more durable. You don't have these same like scratches and things like that, because the color is actually imbued into the fabric. So that's why we don't need a paint shop. So the microfactory is really a tremendous innovation that's been enabled by these different technologies that we've been able to kind of create ourselves and really pioneer.
Great, thanks. It's really interesting, and I hope one day I will have the luck to visit one of your microfactories in France in the coming months or years. I suggest I encourage our viewers to ask questions, and we will now switch to those questions, and we already received a few of them. One question, which is actually linked to what you mentioned, especially linked to the microfactory concept, which is designed, as I understand, to reduce the environmental footprint of your engines and vehicles. Do you consider, or do you use reduce, repair, reuse, and recycle in your business model? To what extent those concepts are integrated within your activities?
It's a great question, thank you, because there's some key principles, DNA, I would say, that runs through Arrival, and it's clean, circular, and equitable. So it's definitely something that is always built into the strategy. So just going back to another example, the materials we use, this composite material we use, is completely recyclable, and we can do that in-house on site. So scraps or offcuts from when you're making the body panel, all the offcuts, you can ground them down into little pellets, and then that can be injection molded into other components in the vehicle, which might be the dashboard. So we really push for this very circular approach and a much cleaner approach. And as I mentioned, it is very significant that we don't have something like a paint shop or the large presses. So sustainability is very much at the core of what we do. We were really driven originally by, how can we have cleaner cities? How can we, get the emissions out of cities by having, cleaner vehicles? And I think what makes Arrival really different is we're not just looking at how to take out the engine and put in something electric, but we're really rethinking the whole design process, the whole production process, to that much more, I would say, end-to-end sustainability, not just the vehicle itself, but everything that got it there.
Okay, so I understand that your will is to have vehicles that last longer than others. I mean, the idea is to reduce the environmental footprints, and to do that, you need some time to repair the vehicles, and that brings me to another question that was asked by one of our viewers. Could you give us more an indication about the distribution network and after-sales services in continental Europe and maybe France? What's your strategy in terms of maintenance to maintain your fleet?
That's a really good question, because we do have a different strategy in terms of, obviously everybody is familiar with the traditional OEMs where maybe they see a dealer shop on the high street or in the cities and towns. Our strategy is to partner with local partners that we train and we know, and then we teach them, how to repair, how to replace the Arrival vehicles. And what enables that is we, as I mentioned, we have this like Lego architecture approach. So give you one example, our high voltage battery modules are designed such as if there is a problem with one, you can replace one module and you don't have to look at the whole pack. And in other vehicles, sometimes you have to remove the whole pack. It's much more expensive. It's much more labor intensive. So there are some enablers we've enabled that we've kind of pioneered to make that after sales part much more straightforward for the customer and for the fleet operator.
So the idea is to rely on the after sales networks and services that are already working with your customers, but to provide them with guidance in order they can
we would train. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So our exchange is coming to its end, but I would like to ask you maybe one last question. I don't know if you will be able to answer something about it, but Could you give us more insights about the different markets you are willing to expand in the world? And especially, of course, I'm going to ask you the question of France. Do you have any will to expand in France?
Yeah, of course. So our priority markets globally are very much Europe and UK, Europe and the US. This is where we see the most demand. And I would say specifically in terms of France, our agreement with LeasePlan is very important because that covers Europe wide, and France is I think going to be a very key market there. I would also say, living in France, that the way of the policy is going and the way that the cities are making decisions about the city about what vehicles are allowed in or not allowed in the cities, that I keep my fingers crossed we see a lot of arrival vans in France soon.
Perfect. I look forward to seeing my first arrival vehicle in France. Oh, I have one last question, and I see we've reached 15 minutes. We have enough time for one last question. Will you operate all the micro factories by yourself, or will you develop a franchise policy? That's a very interesting question.
That is a really interesting question, and because it's such a unique approach and a decentralized approach, we have that option. I can say today we haven't decided. We are focused very much on the van right now, on like getting the best vehicles in the hands of our customers. But I would say obviously the decentralized approach opens that door, but as of today, I can't say.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks for providing us with all those insights and information. It's really exciting. And as I said, I really look forward to see an arrival vehicle in France or anywhere else in Europe or in the world. Thank you, Mary-J, for taking the time to join us today. If our viewers want to know more about Arrival, feel free to reach out to Mary-J, whose email address will be shared in your screens or in the chat section, if I'm right, in a few seconds. This was our last talk of September. Next month, in October, we will be focused on another super exciting topic, which is also in the news at the moment, the prospects for hydrogen in mobility. Thank you again, Mary-J, for taking the time to join us and to share your vision and expertise about this industry.
That's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Clément.
And thank you all for connecting every Wednesday this month to follow our talks. Have a great day. Goodbye to everybody.